The quantum resonance of the distress beacon cut through the infinite darkness like a knife of pure desperation. Epsilon Prime had been more than just a colony. It was the crown jewel of Xeraxian expansion, a meticulously terraformed world that represented generations of hope and scientific achievement. Now, it was nothing more than a graveyard of shattered dreams. Commander Zeralyn pressed her translucent hand against the holographic display, watching the final moments of her homeworld replay in gut-wrenching detail. The Krell Horde's attack had been surgical in its brutality. They didn't just destroy, they dismantled. Each sector of the colony fell with mathematical precision, defense systems overwhelmed by waves of biomechanical war machines that moved like liquid nightmare. The first wave had come without warning. Massive displacement fields scrambled communication arrays, creating pockets of absolute silence, where once thriving communication networks had hummed with life. Defensive platforms, the pinnacle of Xeraxian defensive technology, collapsed like paper structures against the Krell's relentless assault. Zeralyn remembered the moment everything changed. Her partner, Chief Science Officer Krellax, had been monitoring the outer perimeter when the first breach occurred. Their quantum-linked communication had gone silent mid-sentence, replaced by a horrific static that still echoed in her nightmares. The last visual transmission showed something that defied comprehension: massive drill-like appendages puncturing through the colony's primary shield generators, tearing molecular structures apart with casual brutality. The colony's population had been precisely 2,367,442 souls before the attack. Now, the survivor count stood at a mere 412. Each of those survivors carried the weight of complete annihilation, their bodies marked by trauma that transcended physical wounds. What made the Krell Horde so terrifying wasn't just their technological superiority, but their absolute commitment to total elimination. They didn't conquer, they'd erased. Entire civilizations became nothing more than statistical data in their cold, calculative records. They'd moved from system to system, consuming resources and leaving nothing but molecular dust in their wake. The surviving diplomatic vessel, a sleek research craft hastily converted into an evacuation ship, now drifted through an asteroid field at the edge of the colony's former territory. Its quantum shielding was degrading, power systems operating at minimal capacity. Commander Zeralyn knew their chances of survival were microscopic. "Prepare the long-range transmission," she commanded, her voice a mixture of resignation and defiance. Her communications officer, a young technician named Vexinar, looked up with wide eyes. "Commander, our energy reserves can barely maintain life support. A full-spectrum broadcast will drain our remaining resources." Zeralyn's multispectral eyes locked onto the young officer. "We are not going to simply fade away. If this is to be our final act, we will make certain someone knows what happened here." The transmission preparation was a delicate dance of quantum encryption and multiband frequency modulation. They couldn't risk the Krell intercepting their desperate call. Each burst of data was coded with the colony's final moments: visual records, scientific data, tactical information about the attackers. It was more than a distress signal. It was a final testament to a civilization on the brink of extinction. As the transmission launched, Commander Zeralyn felt something she hadn't experienced since the attack began: a momentary sense of hope. Someone, somewhere in the vast cosmic expanse, might receive their message, might understand the magnitude of what had transpired, might care enough to remember. Little did she know how profoundly that hope would be answered. The diplomatic vessel's quantum drive began to fluctuate, energy systems failing. Emergency protocols initiated a gradual shutdown, preserving critical data modules. In the vast, indifferent darkness of space, the ship became nothing more than another piece of cosmic debris, its most important cargo, the transmission, already racing towards an unknown destination. Commander Zeralyn closed her eyes, allowing the ship's final moments to wash over her. Whatever came next, they had not been forgotten. They had not died silently. The quantum signal arrived at Orbital Monitoring Station, Alpha like a ghost from another universe. Most would have dismissed it as cosmic background noise, but Jack Reynolds was not most people. 37 years of deep space communication analysis had honed his instincts to a razor's edge. When the first anomalous pattern flickered across his monitoring screens, his cybernetic-enhanced neural implants began processing at speeds that would make standard supercomputers look archaic. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering, a floating research platform that bridged multiple scientific disciplines. Suspended in low Earth orbit, it represented humanity's most advanced listening post, a silent sentinel watching the cosmic frontier. Massive quantum receivers stretched like metallic tendrils, capturing the faintest whispers from the depths of space. Lieutenant Amanda Rodriguez stood beside Jack, her tactical training complementing his analytical expertise. Where Jack saw patterns, she saw potential threats. Her augmented reality display began overlaying the transmission with potential threat assessments, cross-referencing known alien communication signatures from humanity's previous extraterrestrial encounters. "This is no random burst," Jack muttered, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Quantum decryption algorithms began peeling back layers of alien encryption that would have defeated most computational systems. The level of complexity here is unprecedented. The transmission carried more than just a distress call. It was a comprehensive data package: scientific records, tactical information, genetic archives, and what appeared to be the last moments of an entire civilization. Each fragment told a story of destruction, of a species pushed to the absolute brink of extinction. Within moments, the station's alert systems activated. Secure communication channels to the Global Extraterrestrial Response Command lit up like a neural network coming to sudden violent life. Protocol Omega, the highest level of potential first contact scenario, was initiated. "We need a full spectrum analysis," Amanda announced, her voice cutting through the growing tension. "Get me Dr. Elena Thompson from the Xenolinguistics Department. If anyone can make sense of this, she can." Jack's neural implants were already compiling a preliminary report. The alien transmission contained multiple layers of communication: visual, quantum encoded, and what seemed to be some form of genetic memory transfer. It was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Within 30 minutes, a specialized response team had assembled. Dr. Elena Thompson arrived first, her reputation as the world's foremost expert in alien communication preceding her. Half human, half cybernetic augmentation, she represented the pinnacle of humanity's evolutionary potential. "Fascinating," she whispered, analyzing the transmission's core structure. "This isn't just a message. It's a complete cultural download." The Global Extraterrestrial Response Team, GERT, began mobilizing with a speed that would have been impossible just a decade earlier. Specialized starships, biological mechanical hybrids that blended organic adaptation with cutting-edge technology, were prepared for potential deployment. Jack noticed something else buried deep within the transmission: a set of coordinates that seemed to pulse with an almost living energy. The location suggested a recent conflict, a place of total devastation that still carried residual energy signatures. "We're looking at the aftermath of something massive," he told Amanda, pointing to a complex molecular breakdown in the transmission's deeper layers. Whatever happened here was not a simple military engagement. This was total systematic destruction. Lieutenant Rodriguez's tactical display began populating with potential scenarios: threat assessments, resource calculations, potential diplomatic approaches, all calculated in milliseconds by the station's advanced AI systems. "We can't ignore this," she said firmly. "If these coordinates are accurate, we're looking at a potential genocide. And whoever did this might still be out there." The station hummed with potential energy. Humanity stood on the precipice of its most significant extraterrestrial encounter. The distress beacon that was meant to signal an ending was about to become the beginning of something entirely unexpected. Jack Reynolds looked at the swirling data and felt something he hadn't experienced in years: pure, unfiltered excitement. First contact was no longer a theoretical concept. It was happening right now, right here. The assembly of the expeditionary fleet was a symphony of human technological prowess and organizational genius. Docking Bay 17 at the New Houston Orbital Shipyard transformed into a hive of controlled chaos, where hundreds of specialized personnel moved with purpose that bordered on choreography. Captain Michael Holbrook stood on the command deck of the U.S. Indomitable, reviewing the final mission parameters. His vessel was unlike any traditional spacecraft, a living, breathing entity that merged biological adaptation with cutting-edge technological innovation. The ship's hull wasn't merely a metal shell, but a complex adaptive system that could self-repair, redistribute energy, and respond to threats with an almost sentient intelligence. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, the lead xenobiological systems engineer, completed the final neural interface calibrations. Her team had spent months preparing the ship's bioresponsive systems to handle potential first contact scenarios. Each crew member was more than just a human. They were an integrated part of a larger, more complex organism. Quantum drive alignment is nominal, announced Lieutenant Carlos Martinez from the navigation station. His fingers danced across holographic interfaces that seemed to anticipate his movements. Gravitational compensation matrices are holding at 99.7% efficiency. The crew represented the best of human potential. Cybernetic augmentations blended seamlessly with biological systems, creating a team that was more than the sum of its individual parts. Each member had been selected not just for their technical expertise, but for their psychological resilience and adaptive capabilities. Chief Engineer Rebecca Chen monitored the ship's biological-mechanical interfaces. The Indomitable wasn't just a vessel. It was a living ecosystem. Nanite repair systems flowed through its structure like blood through veins, constantly analyzing, repairing, and improving. The ship could literally heal itself during long-distance space travel. Quantum entanglement communication array is locked and ready, Rebecca reported. Her neural implants allowed her to interface directly with the ship's systems, feeling its energy flow like an extension of her own body. The mission parameters were clear but complex. Rescue, reconnaissance, and potential first contact, with an emphasis on preservation of the newly discovered alien species. Historical records of previous extraterrestrial encounters have been carefully analyzed, with every potential scenario wargamed through advanced predictive algorithms. Captain Holbrook watched the final pre-launch preparations with a calm that belied the mission's complexity. His augmented eyes scanned multiple information streams simultaneously, processing data at speeds that would have seemed impossible just a decade earlier. Final system check complete, announced the ship's integrated AI. Its voice was neither fully human nor completely synthetic, a perfect blend that reflected the vessel's hybrid nature. The launch sequence began with a low, almost organic hum. Quantum drives powered up, creating localized gravitational distortions that would allow faster-than-light travel. The New Houston Orbital Shipyard's massive energy grid channeled power into the expeditionary fleet, each ship preparing to punch a hole through the fabric of space-time. Dr. Rodriguez approached Captain Holbrook, her augmented display showing multiple potential first contact scenarios. "We're entering unknown territory," she said, her voice a mixture of scientific curiosity and tactical caution. Holbrook nodded. Unknown, but not unprepared. The first quantum jump would take them beyond the mapped regions of human-explored space. They were heading into a region that existed only as coordinates and the desperate transmission from a dying civilization. As the fleet prepared to jump, Captain Holbrook felt the collective anticipation of his crew. This was more than a rescue mission. This was humanity's next step into the cosmic unknown. The quantum drives engaged. Space folded, and the U.S. Indomitable disappeared into the infinite darkness between stars. The quantum emergence was unlike any conventional space transition, where most species experienced dimensional shifts as violent, disruptive events. The U.S. Indomitable slipped into normal space with surgical precision. Quantum stabilization fields rippled outward, creating a momentary bubble of absolute calm before the full horror of the scene came into focus. Epsilon Prime was no longer a world. It was a grave. Captain Michael Holbrook's augmented vision parsed the destruction with terrifying efficiency. Orbital scans revealed layers of devastation that defied conventional warfare. Entire continental regions had been systematically dismantled, with geometric precision that suggested something far beyond random destruction. "Fold spectrum analysis," he commanded, his voice calm despite the magnitude of what they were witnessing. Lieutenant Elena Rodriguez's tactical displays erupted with data. Molecular scans revealed complex energy signatures that spoke of a weapon system far beyond current human understanding. The Krell horde had not just attacked, they had performed a near-complete molecular disassembly of an entire planetary ecosystem. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, the lead xenobiological expert, focused on the survivor signatures. Her neural interfaces worked overtime, tracking the faintest signs of life amid the cosmic devastation. "We've got pockets of survivors," she reported, her voice tight with professional restraint. "Approximately 412 life signs, heavily concentrated in what appears to be underground shelters and partial atmospheric bubbles." The rescue operation began with a precision that defied the chaotic environment. Specialized rescue pods deployed from the Indomitable, each a marvel of adaptive technology. These weren't simple transport vehicles. They were living rescue systems that could reconfigure themselves to match the specific environmental needs of different species. Chief Medical Officer Dr. James Chen monitored the first contact protocols. His cybernetic augmentations allowed him to process multiple physiological scenarios simultaneously. The Zoraxian biology was complex, a mixture of silicon-based and carbon-based life forms that would challenge most conventional medical approaches. "Atmospheric reconstruction beginning," announced the ship's integrated systems. Massive energy projectors started to stabilize the fragmented planetary environment, creating localized protective zones around survivor clusters. The first rescue pod touched down near a massive underground complex. Its adaptive exterior shifted, molecular structures realigning to create a perfect seal with the alien environment. Rescue teams moved with a fluidity that blended human determination with technological precision. Captain Holbrook watched the operation unfold, his tactical overlay showing multiple layers of potential threat scenarios. The Krell horde could return at any moment. Every second counted. Dr. Elena Rodriguez discovered something unexpected in the initial scans. The survivors weren't just hiding. They were actively trying to preserve their scientific and cultural archives. Massive data storage systems had been protected with a level of ingenuity that spoke to the Zoraxians' will to survive. "Captain," she called out, "we're detecting complex data preservation protocols. These aren't just survivors, they're trying to save their entire civilization's knowledge." The rescue pods began extracting survivors with a gentleness that belied their advanced technological capabilities. Each extraction was a delicate dance of medical intervention, environmental stabilization, and psychological support. The human teams understood that they were not just saving bodies, but potentially an entire species' chance at survival. Lieutenant Carlos Martinez managed the external defensive perimeter. Advanced sensor arrays created a multi-layered protection zone around the rescue operations. If the Krell horde returned, they would find humanity waiting. Dr. James Chen made first medical contact with the first group of Zoraxian survivors. Their physiology was challenging. Multiple organ systems that functioned differently from anything in human medical records. But where other species might have hesitated, the human medical team adapted, recalibrated, and proceeded. "We're here," Captain Holbrook's voice resonated through the rescue channels. "You are not alone." The words were more than just a communication. They were a promise. Epsilon Prime, once a dying world, had become the unexpected stage for humanity's most complex rescue mission. And they were just getting started. Commander Zara Lynn watched the human medical teams work with a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. Her understanding of galactic diplomacy had prepared her for countless scenarios, but nothing could have anticipated this level of immediate, comprehensive intervention. Dr. Emily Thompson moved between the surviving Zoraxians with a grace that defied the complexity of their rescue. Her neural interfaces constantly adjusted, translating not just language, but nuanced emotional and physiological responses. Where traditional medical approaches would have struggled, human technology bridged impossible gaps. Your cellular regeneration systems are remarkable, she explained to a group of recovering Zoraxian scientists. Her hands moved in fluid gestures, holographic displays materializing to show complex biological repair processes. We've adapted our medical nanites to work with your unique silicon-carbon hybrid cellular structure. The underground shelter that had been the Zoraxians' last refuge now buzzed with an unexpected energy. Human rescue teams didn't just provide medical support. They brought hope, technological solutions, and a level of commitment that defied the Zoraxians' previous understanding of interspecies interactions. Chief Engineer Rebecca Chen worked alongside Zoraxian technical specialists, rebuilding communication systems and environmental stabilization units. Her approach was collaborative, treating the alien engineers as partners rather than victims. Complex technological challenges became shared problem-solving exercises. We're not just repairing, Rebecca explained to a group of skeptical Zoraxian technicians. We're helping you rebuild a foundation for survival. Commander Zara Lynn approached Captain Michael Holbrook, her multispectral eyes studying the human leader with intense curiosity. The human captain stood nearly 2 meters tall, a perfect blend of biological augmentation and technological integration. Where Zoraxian leadership was typically bureaucratic and cautious, Holbrook radiated a sense of immediate, actionable purpose. Why? She asked simply. The universal translator caught the depth of her question, not just about the rescue, but about the fundamental motivation behind such comprehensive assistance. Holbrook's response was direct. Because no civilization deserves complete extinction. The medical bay became a testament to human adaptability. Dr. James Chen developed custom nanomedical protocols that could work across the Zoraxian biological systems. Each treatment was a complex dance of technological innovation and biological understanding. Lieutenant Elena Rodriguez managed the broader tactical and diplomatic aspects of the rescue. She understood that saving a species was more than just medical intervention. It was about preserving their cultural and scientific legacy. We're recovering your data archives, she explained to a group of surviving Zoraxian scholars. Every piece of scientific research, every cultural record, they're being preserved and restored. The Zoraxians began to understand that this was more than a rescue. It was a comprehensive preservation of their entire civilization's potential. Psychological support teams worked alongside medical specialists. They understood that survival wasn't just about physical healing, but about maintaining cultural and individual resilience. Special neural interface counseling helped the survivors process their traumatic experiences. Commander Zara Lynn watched as human teams set up advanced environmental reconstruction modules. Where her people had only hoped to survive, the humans were already planning total planetary restoration. We don't just save, Dr. Emily Thompson explained during a comprehensive briefing. We rebuild. We restore. We provide a path forward. The underground shelter transformed. What had been a desperate survival zone became a hub of reconstruction and hope. Human technology merged with Zoraxian knowledge, creating solutions that neither species could have developed alone. As the first artificial sunlight was projected into the sheltered zones, creating simulated planetary environments, the Zoraxian survivors began to realize something profound. This was not a simple rescue. This was a new beginning. Humanity had arrived not as conquerors, not as simple rescuers, but as unexpected architects of survival. The first warning came as a quantum disturbance that rippled through the carefully constructed rescue zone. Commander David Chen's tactical systems lit up with a cascade of alerts that suggested something far beyond a standard military approach was incoming. Incoming spatial disruption, Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez called out, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. Multiple dimensional intrusion points detected. The Krell Horde's arrival was nothing like conventional warfare, where human and most known galactic species understood combat as a linear progression of strategic engagements. The Krell represented something far more terrifying. A living, adaptive weapon system that treated entire planetary environments as disposable resources. Massive biomechanical constructs began emerging from quantum fold points. Each vessel was a nightmare of organic and technological fusion. Living ships that moved with a predatory intelligence that defied traditional combat algorithms. Molecular reconstruction fields preceded their arrival, beginning the process of environmental dismantling before the first weapon was even fired. Captain Michael Holbrook's response was instantaneous. Battle stations, he commanded, his voice a calm center of absolute purpose. The U.S. Indomitable transformed. Where moments before it had been a rescue vessel, it now became a weapon of unprecedented complexity. Adaptive shielding systems activated, creating multi-layered quantum interference fields. These weren't simple energy barriers, but dynamic systems that could analyze and counter incoming weapon signatures in microseconds. Each potential attack vector was simultaneously predicted, analyzed, and neutralized. Surrection survivors are to be moved to maximum protection zones, Holbrook instructed. The rescue teams moved with a precision that suggested they had been preparing for this moment since their arrival. The first Krell attack wave was designed to overwhelm through sheer computational complexity. Weapon systems that could simultaneously exist in multiple quantum states struck at the rescue zone. Where traditional defenses would have collapsed, human technology responded with an equally complex counter-strategy. Lieutenant Rodriguez's tactical overlay showed something unprecedented. The human fleet wasn't just defending, they were learning. Each Krell attack methodology was instantly analyzed, with adaptive response protocols developed in real time. Quantum entanglement communication is maintaining full system coherence, announced the ship's integrated AI. Its voice was a perfect blend of computational precision and tactical understanding. Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, the lead xenobiological warfare specialist, monitored the engagement with a clinical detachment. The Krell weren't just a military force. They were a complete ecological destruction system. Their attacks weren't about conquest, but about total molecular reconfiguration. They don't want to defeat us, she explained to Captain Holbrook. They want to completely restructure the molecular environment. The battle became a dance of impossible complexity. Krell weapon systems that could simultaneously exist in multiple dimensional states were met with human adaptive technology that could predict and counter those very same quantum fluctuations. Chief Engineer Rebecca Chen managed the ship's adaptive response systems. The USS Indomitable wasn't just a vessel. It was a living, learning combat organism. Nanite repair systems worked faster than the Krell could damage, creating a perpetual state of molecular restoration. We're not just defending, Chen reported. We're demonstrating the fundamental flaw in their combat approach. The Zoraxian survivors watched in absolute amazement. This wasn't warfare as they understood it. This was a complete reimagining of combat, where technology, adaptation, and purpose merged into something far beyond traditional military engagement. Commander David Chen's tactical displays showed something remarkable. With each engagement, the human fleet was not just defending but actively learning the Krell's combat methodologies. Weapon systems were being understood, predicted, and ultimately neutralized. As the first wave of Krell attacks began to falter, something became abundantly clear. The rescue mission had transformed into something far more significant. Humanity had become more than just defenders. They had become a completely new type of cosmic threat. What began as a rescue mission transformed into the most sophisticated counteroffensive in galactic history. Commander Elena Rodriguez stood at the tactical center of the U.S. Indomitable, her neural interfaces parsing combat data at speeds that would have been impossible just years earlier. The human strategy was nothing short of revolutionary. Where most species would have focused on direct confrontation, the fleet adopted a multi-dimensional approach that completely redefined the concept of warfare. Each Krell attack vector became an opportunity for technological and strategic learning. Adaptive response protocols are achieving 98.7% predictive accuracy, announced the ship's integrated AI. Its voice carried a subtle undertone of what could only be described as professional satisfaction. Dr. Sarah Chen, the lead xenological warfare specialist, had been studying the Krell's combat methodologies since the first engagement. Her team had developed something far beyond traditional military intelligence, a complete predictive model that could anticipate the Krell Horde's computational decision-making processes. They're not just a military force, she explained to Captain Michael Holbrook. They're a complete ecological restructuring system. Their entire approach to conflict is about molecular reconfiguration rather than traditional conquest. The counteroffensive began with a series of quantum disruption attacks that targeted the fundamental communication infrastructure of the Krell Horde. Where traditional military approaches would have focused on physical destruction, the human fleet attacked the very computational foundation of the alien war machine. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez managed the Quantum Entanglement Communication Network. Specialized signal manipulation devices created cascading information disruptions that went far beyond standard electronic warfare. They were literally rewriting the Krell's computational decision-making processes in real time. Massive biomechanical constructs that had seemed invincible began to falter. The Krell Horde's primary weakness was their absolute reliance on computational predictability. Humanity's approach was anything but predictable. Chief Engineer Rebecca Chen oversaw the adaptive weapon systems. The USS Indomitable and its accompanying fleet were more than simple spacecraft. They were living, learning combat organisms that could instantaneously adapt to any threat scenario. "We're not just fighting," Rebecca reported. "We're demonstrating a completely new paradigm of conflict resolution." The Zoraxian survivors watched in absolute amazement. Commander Zara Lynn observed how the human fleet transformed each potential weakness into a strategic advantage. Where her civilization would have collapsed, humans saw opportunities for innovation. Quantum fold points became battlegrounds of impossible complexity. Human vessels moved with a fluidity that defied traditional three-dimensional combat strategies. They existed simultaneously in multiple potential combat states, making their movements completely unpredictable to the Krell's computational systems. Molecular reconstruction fields are being systematically neutralized, Lieutenant Elena Rodriguez announced. Her tactical overlays showed something unprecedented. The humans were not just defending, but actively dismantling the Krell's primary weapon systems. Dr. James Chen developed specialized nanotechnological countermeasures that could infiltrate and neutralize the Krell's biomechanical infrastructure. These weren't simple weapons, but complete informational and molecular disruptors that attacked the very foundation of the Krell's technological approach. The battle became a demonstration of humanity's most profound capability, the ability to learn, adapt, and transform any scenario into an opportunity for innovation. Each Krell attack methodology was instantly analyzed, understood, and ultimately neutralized. Commander David Chen's tactical analysis revealed the deeper strategy. This wasn't just about defeating the Krell Horde. This was about demonstrating a completely new approach to interstellar conflict, one based on adaptive intelligence rather than brute force. As the engagement continued, something became abundantly clear. The Krell Horde was facing an enemy unlike anything in their computational models. Humanity represented a fundamental disruption of their entire strategic understanding. The rescue mission had transformed into something far more significant. Humanity was rewriting the very rules of cosmic conflict. The aftermath of the conflict was more than a military victory. It was a complete restructuring of galactic understanding. Where the Krell Horde had once been an unstoppable force of molecular destruction, they now existed as a cautionary tale of technological hubris. Captain Michael Holbrook stood on the observation deck of the U.S. Indomitable, watching as reconstruction efforts began on what remained of Epsilon Prime. The planet was no longer just a battlefield. It was becoming a beacon of hope and renewal. Commander Zara Lynn approached, her multispectral eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and newfound respect. The Zoraxian survivors had witnessed something unprecedented, a rescue that transformed into a complete civilizational resurrection. "We're not just rebuilding. Dr. Emily Thompson explained during a comprehensive restoration briefing. We're creating a completely new approach to planetary reconstruction. Advanced terraforming modules began their work, nanite systems carefully restructuring molecular environments. What had been a devastated planetary surface was slowly transforming into a living ecosystem. Specialized bioengineering teams worked alongside Zoraxian scientists, creating hybrid restoration technologies that combined the best of both civilizations. Lieutenant Elena Rodriguez managed the diplomatic aspects of the reconstruction. This was far more than a simple rescue mission. It was the foundation of a potential new galactic alliance. The Zoraxian survivors were not just being saved, they were being empowered. Chief Engineer Rebecca Chen developed collaborative technological platforms that allowed Zoraxian and human engineers to work together seamlessly. Neural interface systems bridge not just communication gaps, but fundamental technological understanding. Your molecular reconstruction capabilities are remarkable, a Zoraxian lead scientist told Rebecca. The human engineer smiled, understanding that true technological advancement came from collaboration, not competition. The galactic community watched with a mixture of shock and fascination. The Krell horde, once considered an unstoppable force, had been comprehensively neutralized. More importantly, humanity had demonstrated an approach to conflict that went beyond mere military victory. Dr. Sarah Chen's xenological research teams began comprehensive studies of the conflict. They weren't just analyzing a military engagement, they were understanding a completely new paradigm of interstellar interaction. This isn't about conquest, she explained in her preliminary report. This is about preservation, restoration, and collaborative survival. Diplomatic teams worked to ensure the Zoraxian survivors could rebuild their civilization. Advanced educational and technological transfer programs were established. Where other species might have imposed conditions, humans offered genuine partnership. Commander David Chen oversaw the strategic implications. The conflict had demonstrated humanity's most profound capabilities, the ability to transform a potential extinction event into an opportunity for growth and collaboration. The first new Zoraxian human collaborative research centers began to take shape. These weren't simple scientific outposts, but living universities of interspecies collaboration. Young Zoraxian scientists worked alongside human researchers, creating technologies that neither species could have developed alone. Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez managed the communication infrastructure that would connect the rebuilding Zoraxian civilization with the broader galactic community. These weren't just communication networks, they were bridges of understanding. As the first artificial ecosystems began to take shape on the reconstructed Epsilon Prime, something became abundantly clear. The distress beacon that had been broadcast in the final moments of destruction had become something far more significant. It was a call that had not just saved a civilization, but had fundamentally altered the understanding of what was possible in the cosmos. Humanity had arrived as rescuers and departed as architects of a new galactic possibility. Epilogue. Galactic historical records would later note this moment as the true emergence of humanity on the interstellar stage. Not as conquerors, not as simple defenders, but as a species capable of transforming destruction into hope with a ferocity that defied comprehension.